He had built rockets to reach the stars, but it was one whispered prayer from his son that brought him to his knees. As Elon Musk stood outside a cracked bedroom door, he heard something that shattered his armor completely. What did his 5-year-old say in the dark that made the world's most brilliant mind break down in tears? Before we continue this incredible story, let us know where you're watching from. If you enjoy stories like this, subscribe to the channel because tomorrow we have another inspiring story you won't want to miss. It was nearly midnight. The hallway of Elon Musk's private residence was cloaked in soft shadows, lit only by faint nightlights spaced evenly along the baseboards. The usual hum of digital screens, notifications, and distant conversations was absent. The house, for once, was still. Elon moved slowly through the quiet, his shoulders slumped slightly, his eyes tired and unfocused. The past week had blurred together, meetings stacked on top of emergencies, flights between continents, factory inspections, and the unrelenting pressure of innovation. His mind, usually sharp and precise, felt dulled by the constant motion. His footsteps were light, almost automatic, guided more by routine than intention. As he reached the hallway near the bedrooms, he noticed something small but familiar: his son's door, slightly ajar. Just a few inches. X liked it that way. A small sliver of light from the hallway always helped him fall asleep. Elon had seen it cracked like that 100 times before, but tonight something made him pause. He wasn't sure what it was. A sudden stillness in the air, or maybe something he couldn't quite name. He stepped closer, careful not to make a sound. Then he heard it. A soft voice, his son's voice, speaking gently, rhythmically, like a lullaby. But it wasn't a story or a dream. It was a prayer. Elon stood completely still, just outside the cracked door, hardly breathing. Inside, X's voice floated into the hallway, gentle, unguarded, and raw. "God," the boy whispered, "I don't know if you can hear me, but I'm trying." Elon's chest tightened. He wasn't sure what he was hearing at first. It wasn't a game, it wasn't a bedtime story. It was his son, praying. "Can you help my daddy not be so tired?" X continued. "He says he's okay, but I think his eyes look sad, and sometimes he forgets to eat." Elon felt his feet root to the floor. The hallway was silent, but something in him was screaming. "I love him even when he's busy," X added softly. "I just want him to feel like I see him." That line pierced deeper than any investor's critique or public controversy ever had. Elon backed away slowly, careful not to make a sound. He made it to the kitchen before the emotion hit. Tears slid down his face, quiet, steady, without drama. He didn't understand why it hit so hard, only that it did. His son hadn't asked for toys or fun or himself. He'd asked for Elon, for his father to feel seen. And that changed everything. The silence of that night clung to Elon as he sat in the dim kitchen, unmoving. His thoughts turned inward, cycling through years of motion and momentum. Flashbacks played across his mind like a series of headlines and deadlines. Rocket launches, prototype unveilings, global summits, and the countless whiteboards filled with ideas that had shaped his companies. Success, to Elon Musk, had never been optional. It had been survival, expression, and mission. And in that pursuit, time became currency. Time spent with family was borrowed, never fully owned. Even fatherhood had often competed with duty. Meetings came before bedtime, presentations before play. That was the price of vision, he'd always told himself. Faith, on the other hand, had no place in his framework. Elon built his world around logic, data, and innovation. Belief systems were for those who needed answers beyond the observable. He admired ancient wisdom and philosophical thought, but his own compass had always pointed to science, things he could measure, improve, and control. Yet what he heard that night from X wasn't something he could measure. It wasn't a calculation or a conclusion. It was love. spoken in its purest form, without instruction or expectation. And in that moment, Elon realized his son didn't see a billionaire or a world changer. He saw a father, a tired one, a hurting one. And he loved him anyway, not for what he had done, but simply for being there. That realization unraveled something deep inside Elon. It wasn't shame, it wasn't regret. It was something quieter. Recognition. His son had prayed not to be heard, but to make sure his father felt seen, and somehow that mattered more than any milestone Elon had ever reached. The kitchen still smelled faintly of batter and oil when Elon stood over the stove the next morning, clumsily flipping what was left of his fourth attempt at a pancake. He had used too much oil again. The first two had stuck, the third had torn. This one was tolerable. It wasn't exactly how he'd planned to start the day, but after the night before, nothing felt normal anyway. He heard the soft padding of footsteps behind him and turned just in time to see X enter the room, still wrapped in his blanket, hair tousled and eyes half closed. The boy blinked, confused for a moment. Then he rubbed his eyes and stared at the stove. "You made breakfast?" he asked, voice small. Elon nodded, trying not to look as uncertain as he felt. "I tried." X climbed up onto the bar stool, blanket still draped around his shoulders like a cape. He looked at the plate Elon placed in front of him, a lopsided pancake with one edge slightly too dark, and didn't comment. He just picked up a fork, took a bite, and nodded. "It's good," he said simply. They ate in silence for a while. Elon sipped his coffee, eyes drifting to his son, then to the window, then back again. There was something fragile about the morning, like it might vanish if he spoke too soon. But eventually, he cleared his throat. "Hey, do you talk to God?" Off. X didn't look up right away. He chewed another bite, swallowed, then shrugged. "Sometimes." "Why now?" Elon asked gently. The boy finally looked at him. "Because someone has to." That answer stunned Elon more than he expected. He stared at his son, trying to form a response, but found himself speechless. "Do you think he listens?" he asked eventually. X nodded slowly. "I think he listens when you mean it." Elon blinked, watching him closely. "Who taught you to say that?" "No one," X replied. "I just think it." They finished breakfast without another word, but in the quiet between them, something unspoken was exchanged. Something real. Something neither of them could fully explain, but both understood. And for Elon, that was new. Later that night, after X had gone to bed and the house was once again still, Elon sat alone in his office. The day had passed like a fog. The conversation over pancakes, the quiet understanding, it lingered, tugging at him. He kept thinking about what X had said. Someone has to. Elon had no answer for it, just questions. He picked up his phone and, without really planning to, called his mother. May answered on the second ring. "Elon?" she said, her voice sharp and alert even at the late hour. "Is everything all right?" "I'm okay," he said, hesitating. "I just needed to ask you something." There was a pause. "You sound strange." "I overheard X praying last night," he said finally. "I didn't teach him to do that. No one did, I think. But he meant it. Every word." May was quiet for a moment. Then her voice softened. "You did the same when you were little." Elon blinked. "What?" "Where you were 5, she said. "You'd kneel by the bed and whisper things. You prayed for me to get rest, for me to smile more." "I don't remember that." "I do," she replied gently. "You didn't know what prayer was, but you knew how to love." Elon sat in stunned silence, the weight of her words sinking in. Had he always been this way? Before the logic? Before the world taught him to chase certainty? The next day, Elon scheduled a private meeting with a family therapist and a child psychologist. No cameras, no press, just questions he didn't know how to ask anyone else. How do children come to believe in something they can't see? He asked. The therapist smiled kindly. When the world around them feels too big, too loud, or indifferent, they look for places where they feel heard. Prayer isn't always about religion. Sometimes it's about relationship. The psychologist added, kids reach for something that listens without interrupting. That presence becomes sacred. Elon nodded slowly, processing it all. Belief, it seemed, wasn't just about answers. Maybe it never had been. Maybe it was about being heard, about being seen, about knowing you matter, even in silence. The next evening, Elon found himself on the living room floor, legs crossed, sitting beside X, who was completely immersed in building something with blocks. His small hands moved with quiet focus, arranging tiny pieces into what looked like a miniature space station. Elon watched him for a few minutes in silence, the soft clatter of plastic the only sound in the room. X's brow was furrowed in concentration, tongue sticking out slightly at the corner of his mouth. "Can I help?" Elon asked. Without looking up, X nodded and slid a few blocks over to him. They built in silence for a while, side by side. No instructions, no need for explanations, just a quiet rhythm. Eventually, Elon placed a small arch on top of one of the towers and cleared his throat. "I heard you the other night," he said gently. X paused, not startled, just still. Then he looked up at his father. "I wasn't hiding," he said simply. Elon nodded. "I know." They continued building. A moment passed before Elon asked, "Do you think God listens? I mean, really listens?" X didn't answer right away. He adjusted a corner piece, then said softly, "Only if you mean it." That reply settled in Elon's chest like a stone in still water. He wasn't sure why it mattered so much, but it did. Later that night, after X had gone to bed and the house was once again wrapped in silence, Elon walked into his office. The glow of his computer screen illuminated the room. For a moment he stood there, staring at the screen, hundreds of unread emails waiting. He reached for the trackpad, paused, and then closed the laptop with both hands. The click echoed louder than it should have. He sat down. No agenda, no task list, just stillness. He folded his hands, not out of habit but from instinct, and then he whispered a single word. "God." That was all. He didn't ask for anything. He didn't try to explain himself. He just waited. Not for a voice or a sign, but for something less visible. Something that felt like permission to begin. In the days that followed, something began to shift in Elon. Not in his routines or public appearances, but in the way he moved through his world. He still rose early. He still walked the factory floors at Tesla and SpaceX with that same forward momentum. But now he paused more often. He noticed more. The subtle hesitation in a junior engineer's voice during a pitch, the quiet diligence of a janitor sweeping the corner near the freight elevator, the soft sigh of his assistant as she wrapped up back-to-back calls without complaint. These weren't things he would have caught before. He'd been too fast, too focused on the next thing. But now he was listening. During meetings, Elon no longer filled silences just to break them. He let people speak longer, asked more questions. When a prototype presentation hit a roadblock, instead of diving in to solve it himself, he said, "Walk me through what mattered most to you when you designed this." It surprised people. Sometimes it surprised him too. Every night, without fail, he passed by X's bedroom door. Some nights it was closed, lights off, silent. Other times it was cracked just slightly, like before. Occasionally he'd hear the soft murmur of his son's voice again, talking quietly to the dark. Elon never interrupted. He simply stood there, hand brushing the doorframe, listening, feeling something stretch and soften inside of him. Then one night, something else happened. He approached X's door as usual, expecting it to be closed. But this time, It was wide open, and the room was empty, tidy, quiet, the faint glow of a nightlight in the corner. On the floor, just beside the bed, sat a small piece of paper folded once, waiting. Elon picked it up, careful not to crease it. On the outside, in uneven crayon letters, it said, "For Daddy." He opened it. Inside was a drawing. 2 stick figures, one tall, one small, stood beneath a wide sky filled with stars. Above them, in bright yellow crayon, were the words, "God sees us too." Elon didn't move. He didn't blink. He sat down right there in the hallway, back against the wall, drawing in his lap, and let the weight of those words settle deep inside him. He didn't analyze. He didn't interpret. He just felt. And that was enough. The auditorium was quiet, yet charged with expectation. Elon Musk stood beneath soft stage lights at an exclusive summit in Colorado, surrounded by top thinkers and innovators. He had been invited to speak on artificial intelligence and interplanetary logistics, the subjects that usually defined him. The moderator introduced him with the usual accolades, and Elon began with what they expected: projections, strategy, potential. But as his time drew to a close, his tone shifted. "There's something else I want to share," he said, voice steady but softer than usual. "It's not about numbers, or algorithms, or rockets." The crowd stilled. "It's about a moment that I didn't engineer. I didn't plan it. I wasn't ready for it." He paused. It was late at night. I had just come home from another long stretch. Travel, meetings, deadlines, you know the routine. I was walking through the hallway when I heard something from my son's room. He looked out at the audience, searching for the right words. Who was praying? That single word seemed to ripple through the room. "I hadn't taught him that," Elon continued. "We hadn't talked much about faith in our home. I didn't even know he knew what prayer was. But he was talking to someone. Someone he believed was listening." Another pause, then his voice softened. He wasn't asking for a toy or for something fun. He said, "God, can you help my daddy not be so tired?" A few people in the audience looked down, visibly moved. "That's what changed me," Elon said. It wasn't what he said, it was why he said it. He wasn't praying to get something. He was praying to give something. He took a breath. At one quiet moment in the dark, it's done more to reshape me than any deal I've signed or any milestone I've hit. There was no applause, just silence, a kind of reverent stillness that filled the space with something heavier than sound. When the applause finally did come, it wasn't polite or rehearsed. It was slow, building, genuine. Later that evening, Elon skipped the cocktail hour. He found X outside in a quiet corner of the garden, kneeling on the grass with a sketch pad resting on his knees. The boy was drawing stars again, his favorite constellation, Orion, and a few made-up ones only he could name. Elon didn't interrupt. He didn't ask what the drawing was for. He just sat beside him on the blanket. X glanced up. "Did it go okay?" Elon nodded. "Yeah, I told them about your prayer." X smiled and went back to sketching. "Did they think it was weird?" "No," Elon replied. "I think it reminded them of something real." They sat in silence, the kind that doesn't need to be filled. The sky above them deepened into blue, speckled with stars. A soft breeze moved through the trees, and for once, Elon didn't think about the emails waiting on his phone or the next launch window or the market report. He just breathed. Present, grounded, changed. He looked over at X again, who was now shading the corner of his drawing with slow, thoughtful strokes. "Hey," Elon said, his voice quiet. "Thank you." "For what?" "For seeing me when I didn't even know I needed to be seen." X looked at him, serious and simple. "That's what love does, Daddy. It looks for you, even in the dark." Elon didn't answer. He didn't need to. He reached over, rested a hand gently on his son's back, and turned his eyes toward the stars. toward the vastness above them and the quiet, unexpected faith growing quietly within. Back home, life didn't change dramatically on the outside. Elon Musk still juggled companies, deadlines, and time zones. Rockets still launched. Prototypes still failed and succeeded in equal measure. Schedules remained full, and expectations remained high. But something quieter had taken root beneath all of it. Something deeper. It started with small things. X began leaving little notes around the house. Drawings on colored paper, messages written in blocky, uneven handwriting. One for the chef that said, "Thank you for making my favorite eggs." One for the housekeeper that read, "You make the floors shiny like the stars." Another for the security guard, "You keep us safe." That's like a superhero. He didn't make a big deal about it. He never asked if people saw the notes or liked them. He just left them where they'd be found. And people did find them. Elon started hearing about them secondhand. A smile from someone in the hallway. A thank you whispered by someone who'd worked in the background for years. It wasn't just X who was noticing more, Elon was too. He found himself speaking differently in meetings, asking better questions, noticing when someone seemed tired or unsure, and offering space instead of solutions. He started using people's names more often. He thanked his staff more deliberately. He stopped assuming they knew. He started making sure they did. He wrote thank you notes of his own, short, handwritten, left on desks after a long meeting or tucked under coffee mugs. They weren't grand gestures. They were small, consistent moments of being present. Of saying, "I see you." One night, after a long day that had started before sunrise and still hadn't fully ended, Elon sat at the dinner table with X. The boy was eating cereal for dessert, humming quietly to himself. Elon was scrolling through emails on his tablet. Then X said without looking up, "You don't have to be perfect, Daddy." Elon blinked. He set the tablet down. "Where'd you hear that?" "I just thought it," X said. "I think sometimes people forget it's okay to just be trying." That night, after X had gone to bed, Elon returned to his office and opened the leather-bound journal he kept now on the corner of his desk. On the top of a clean page, he wrote one sentence in capital letters. "Don't rush the good." He paused, then underlined it. For a long time, Elon had equated value with velocity. Faster launches, quicker turnarounds, more innovation in less time. He'd built his legacy on acceleration. But now, he was beginning to understand that some of the most meaningful things in life don't arrive on a schedule. They unfold slowly, quietly, in whispered prayers, crayon drawings, and sentences spoken over cereal. And sometimes, they show up in the form of a child, one who doesn't care about your net worth, your headlines, or your vision for Mars, one who just wants you to feel seen. As Elon sat back in his chair, the night quiet around him, he looked over at the drawing that still rested on his nightstand, the one X had made weeks ago. Two figures under a sky full of stars, with the words, "God sees us too." He hadn't framed it. He hadn't posted about it. He hadn't needed to. It lived there as a quiet reminder of something bigger than ambition, something steadier than success. Because in the end, the most powerful transformation in Elon Musk's life didn't come from a breakthrough invention or a global stage. It came from a hallway, from a cracked door, from a 5-year-old boy praying not to get something, but to give something. And in that giving, Elon was seen, truly seen. Not as a billionaire, not as a genius, not as a symbol, but as a father, as a man, as someone tired, hurting, and still trying. And sometimes, that's all it takes to begin again. So maybe the lesson isn't in how fast you move, but in how deeply you listen. Maybe it's not in building something new, but in allowing yourself to be rebuilt. By love, by belief, by the soft voice of someone small enough to believe in you completely. If this story moves you, subscribe for more inspiring stories of belief, love, and the quiet moments that change everything.